Okay, third time's the charm, maybe. Hey there, I'm Cheese, and this is Lost Island Masterclass Part 2. I know this has been postponed and postponed because I keep getting sick, which I'm currently getting sick again. And then I had surgery, and I've just been swamped by actual Lost Island and life in general, but it's here. So let's jump right into it. What did we learn on our 45-day stint? Completing SVS. So let's start this whole thing off with talking about how to play server versus server during Lost Island. Personally, I found it the most effective way to play SVS was honestly to do it fairly passively. We did a lot, and I mean a lot of PvP, like billions of resources just, spent on PvP. So what I've been doing is I've been popping epic raspberries, and then I will go over here, and once or twice a day, I'll just collect my season ants, and that's been enough to get me, 5 to 8 shells every day. Currently, I'm sitting at roughly 133,000 creature remains, and I have done 0 Evo this entire time. So, during the course of Lost Island as well, you're going to be capturing layers and residents and wonders. You're going to want to pop an epic raspberry before those too, and just keep that ball rolling. Just anytime you notice that you're going to be getting SVS points for anything, just pop an epic raspberry before you do it, because you're just going to double it. It's also super important to remember Mondays are back. So with the enhancement resin that you're going to be getting, you're going to be able to get that, that elusive 9 shell or 8 shell on Mondays for build day. If you're Queen 25, that's a huge gain in SVS. The second thing that I want to talk about is egg conversion. One of the things that personally I did was after I hit about 100 or so Lost Island eggs, and I've got a few Lost Island ants now, as you can see there. After I used about 100 or so of those, I have started just straight up converting them into 2 orange eggs, because you get 2 orange eggs instead of the 1 Lost Island egg. Now, with it being your first time on Lost Island, you're going to be wanting those, island eggs, which is why I say use up those first 100, get that first guaranteed Lost Island ant. 100 eggs is going to take you to about 6 of the 7 weeks that you'll be on Lost Island, or 7.5 weeks. Yeah, so you'll have like that little patch at the end of 16 eggs or so that you're going to get an extra 30 orange eggs. And if you are interested in seeing what I do with my 426 orange eggs, I'll be making a hatching video that'll be coming out probably week and a half's time after Lost Island is over. So the next thing I want to talk about is resource output. Resource output on Island is significantly higher than regular gameplay, but it also gives you the option to choose what and how much of which resource that you want to redeem, with a small amount of RNG in the amount of boxes that you get. So personally, I found myself just hunting wasps the entire time, because you get between 135 and 185 wasp resource chests, with 1,000 resources in each chest. And personally, I couldn't find a redeeming quality for any of the other insects that allowed me to want to hunt them, other than maybe it was easier to find them, because it seemed like a common theme that everyone thought the wasps were best. And with them being up to level 20 is a fairly difficult creature to hit. So here is the wasps and the potential loot that you're going to get from them. You've got the island fruit, some enhancement resin, you've got island resource chests, as well as the hornet resource chests. You get some honeydew and insect eggs, which effectively kind of doubles what you would usually get per hit. Here's a level 20, so you can see it's actually 7.8 million is the required hit for a level 20 hornet. So the other thing that I will say is the resource requirements for this event are far greater than you've been told. As many resources as you take, you will use. And I mean that. I've seen players use 5 or 6 billion of each resource just from general PvP. And I'm not sure if our island was, particularly extra PvP or whatever you want to call that, but we did do a lot of PvP and we used a lot of resources. So the next thing that we're going to cover is insect output. Now, this wasn't something that I was expecting. I hadn't taken into account until the end of the event, really, how many insects I actually put out. Now, I personally put out 2 or 3 level 5 or 6 orange insects over the course of the event, which normally it would take me about 3 times this amount of time to, naturally generate that. And it's because the season store has insect eggs You get some insect eggs from different rewards, different personal rewards. Insect output for this event, fantastic. Fantastic, and it's a huge win for free-to-play guys. Kind of helps level the playing field some, because there's rubber banding. The higher you go with an insect, the longer it takes to get it to that next level. And right along with that, we have exotic shells. You get an additional 7 exotic shells over the course of this event, as well as your standard 2 per week from the VIP store for 30k gems. And the gem output, honestly, during Lost Island was fantastic as well. There's a lot of opportunities to generate gems. I want to talk about diplomacy. Diplomacy is something that we were not really prepared for or informed of how important it would be for Lost Island. And the need for alliance-to-alliance communication is massively increased. Without diplomacy between alliances, you will spend billions of resources fighting for hours on end. I mean, we got caught in a trap where we were fighting 3 different alliances in 3 different time zones, and it ended up with us having to rotate people throughout our alliance to make sure that we always had people on defending our towers. And it does get really mentally and honestly physically draining after a few weeks of doing this every single day. The playstyle can be incredibly peaceful and placid though, and that's where it comes in with the diplomacy and making deals, setting boundaries. I will say that it kind of felt very Game of Thrones-ish, with the competitiveness and the manipulation and the betrayal. There was a lot of drama on Lost Island. So, let's talk about the Season Store. The Season Store was awesome. You start off the event, you're going to be pushing enhancement resin to get your buildings up so that you're strong enough to defend against other players who are also doing the same. Once you're about mid-season, you're going to be getting it from mostly insects and stuff like that, and just passively upgrading stuff. So once, that's gone, you're going to be wanting to focus on bioessence, orange eggs, exotic shells, which you can see I got everything from the store the entire time. I even ended up buying some sand because, sand is something that you are going to use a lot of. You're also going to be wanting to buy your bioessence in here because you're not going to be doing Alliance Expedition for those 45 days. So if you don't buy it in there, the only other place that you can get it is from the VIP store at VIP 12. The general consensus that I have for the Season Store is it is a huge game changer for free-to-play guys. It gives you massive access to normally what are fairly paywall items that you don't get very often. And honestly, I would recommend spending the $9.99 on the season pack as well to get the additional island fruit for that store. There's also additional daily quests with the Wasp Hunt and the Mud Skipper event, although I have seen a lot of complaints about the Mud Skipper event, which is totally understandable, to be honest, because with how much stamina you're using on all of the other stuff on the island, there isn't really room for it. So a lot of people just ended up passing it up, which at the time, the 1 egg that you get from it each day seems like it's really important, but the island eggs aren't that good, and they include the entire ant pool. It's not just the island ants that you're hatching, so your odds of getting an island ant are fairly slim. But the additional daily quests did add a nice variety to what has become a very same-to-same, everyday, autopilot gameplay experience. It was a nice output to the seasoned soldier ants at the start of the event as well to get the ball rolling, so that when you're in PvP, you do have full marches. So we're going to talk about the force of events. Right now it's the force of nature for me. But you will see right here, the requirements for certain aspects of the force of event have been lowered. And I believe the devs did this for stamina consumption, because realistically you couldn't spare the stamina that would be required to hunt the normal amount of animals or whatever you want to call it for the force of events. Again, the stamina requirements for this, I found myself using all of my stamina every day, no questions asked, whether I was just grinding for resources or in huge PvP battles that lasted for 16 hours. We used a lot of stamina. You can actually see right here that the kill rankings over the course of the event are fairly, substantial. We hit 11 billion total kills probably, I want to say, a week and a half ago, and haven't really much moved since then. We are coming up to the final tree fight tomorrow, so I'll let you know how that goes. I might even record it if it's at a suitable time. So there is also the gathering boost that you get on Lost Island to help compensate for the fact that you realistically can't be pre-gathering for 21 hours before gathering day. Like, you can't be spending 2 days doing gathering on Lost Island. At most, you're going to get like 5 or 6 hours in, which is why passively generating points for SVS is so important. The final thing that I think I want to cover is a few issues, and honestly, a few more complicated things. Personal rewards. Now, this is a complicated area, I think, because on the one hand, it was an awesome addition. The issue is that this caused huge infighting for certain players, because you can only have 10 people in a tower, and the requirement when we landed on Lost Island was that each player needed 50 towers. Now, you can only make so many towers per day, and, you know, we had people who were at 30 towers within the first week and a half or something, and people who were at 6 towers in the last week. So, it created issues, is what I'm saying. Since the start of the event, however, the devs have changed it so that the tower requirement has been lowered, and it made Island far more accessible to casual players, but it didn't give the ability to include more people in the team building experience of towers. The way that we wanted the ideal outcome of this would have been to leave the requirements exactly as they were, but to increase the amount of players that could go into each tower. Even if you only included the first 10 defensive stats and only included the first 10 for increasing the speed of the build. Because the issue with this was now people are hitting the requirement faster, which is knocking them out, giving them nothing to do. They're having to sit out when it isn't an ideal opportunity for the other people who still need to get that requirement The long and short of it is it didn't resolve the issue that we were facing, but it did make it more accessible to casual players, I guess. My only other complaint is the ungodly amount of lag, crashes, disconnects that I experienced throughout all of Lost Island. It has been almost unplayable at points. The general feel that I got from Lost Island was to PvP a lot, which was fun, increased output of everything, and the piece of advice that I would give for this, second part of masterclass, I guess, it's just kind of an update to how I think it could ideally be played. Pushing SVS passively, saving your resources for PvP battles, because no matter how diplomatic you are, there will be some. Pop epic raspberries a lot to passively generate. Use the season store to the best of your advantage. Focus on wasps. The higher you go, the more resin stuff that you're going to get, so focus there. And Lost Island is awesome for growth, but be diplomatic, because diplomacy is far, far underrated. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to leave a like and maybe subscribe. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
The Ants, download for free.